Good evening. You are listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Tonight with me, I have from the great Midwest, RDV. Tonight's film review, Southern Comfort, 1981, starring Powers Boothe, a bunch of guys that you may know from films back in that day. It's directed by Walter Hill. This is a little gem that pops up every now and then when we talk about our top 10 Tuesdays here on the Xtreme Movie Show, about ones that we really, really enjoy, but for some reason don't really get talked about a lot. So we decided, you know what, tis the season, bah humbug and all that. Let's talk about a movie that's arguably pretty simple. It's about a group of people in the early 70s, the National Guard. They're getting together for their summer or once a year exercise, whatever the standard is. And we get to see kind of one little personality trait of each one. And we get to see what happens when we ramp up the stress by them. I would say being violating one of the rules of nature, and that is not respecting the land that you're in. So I suspect anybody who's a naturalist or an outdoorsman would get a kick out of this film, not so much the gunplay and what happens in it, because it's a fairly predictable film. But boy, I just think it's a very entertaining film and very watchable. And I actually think, for even though it's very predictable, I was always entertained by the third act in this film. It's got a little bit of paranoia and all that, but to me, it's a thriller, not an action film. What's your initial take on this film? I think you've never seen it, correct?
Yeah. This is my first time watching it. It's finished about 10 minutes ago. Going into it, it seemed like a thriller, and it's like one of those movies where, like, especially once the first guy died, and then they get the warnings, and I'm thinking, like, okay, are they going against Native Americans? And then you realize it's Cajun. I'm like, oh, it's Cajun. This is gonna be a wrong turn movie. But not as gross. But yeah, predictable. They're following it. We get Fred Ward playing the antagonist. Awesome antagonist in this film. Yeah, he's the guy. He's like, he brought live bullets. He always does. Just in case, whatever, they come across a bear, because they're in the swamps in Louisiana. Anything come out at them, a boar, whatever. This is the 70s, so I mean, it makes sense that there would be some Cajun people living in there. There's moonshiners. They got to worry about that too. But yeah, it's the nature. Pretty much the whole entire movie is just in the swamps, going through the woods.
It's beautiful, and it's like, living here in Central Florida, we have a lot of tropical stuff there too. But basically, when it's the dry season like it is now here, and things turn like brownish, not where you're at, where a lot of things die off and all that, and then come back in the spring. If you ever go out to go out hunting, let's say, or whatever, you get kind of used to the territory. But if you get towards the swamps and all that, it just really reminds you of what it's like here. Water everywhere. It's a couple inches deep. It's disgusting. It's filthy, but you get cold, miserable. And that's one of the beautiful things I think about this film, is the way Walter Hill shoots it. Is, like you said, 80-90% of it immediately is set in the swamps. They get lost. They make some poor decisions, which we'll talk about here in a moment. And we go, yeah, you probably shouldn't have done that. And then we see them just lose the ability to work together, either individually or as a team, until the very end. And of a group of about 8 to 10 guys, whittles down to, I think, 2. And I'm not mad necessarily at the guys, although they're very stupid.
They're typical Eric guys.
You kind of understand after the first mistake they make that, it kind of compounds to it, and it's kind of realistic in that way. We can sit here and scream and go, why would you do such a thing? But it makes sense with what they're trying to do.
If these aren't, my thing is, some of these guys are volunteer guards. They're guardsmen. They're not, they just come in here. Yeah. So they're not, they're
not weekend warriors. They're not Rambos.
They're basically, that's why I can see why some of them are rebellious and stuff like that, because, they don't look at this as being a joke, walk the park, we're gone back. They're not out for war. It's a training exercise. The only guy you get off right at the bat from the get-go is Harding, Powers Boothe's character. He's come from El Paso, Texas, and he's the only one that's serious. Actually, it seems like he's the one who's a survivalist. He's the one that's a training. He respects everything around him. Or the other guys are this, they're just they're high school kids. The way they act.
Yeah.
And he even points it out. He's like, yeah, you guys are going to get us killed. Fred Ward's character, though, he's more. He really looks like John Bernthal.
No, John Bernthal looks like him.
I know, but I'm just saying, going back, seeing they really look like each other, like almost like they're related in some way. But he's got that know-it-all, but he's also he's he's a person that he doesn't want to put up with those crap. So, and he's a tough guy. It's a serious, so he doesn't like Harding because he knows that Harding looks down on him and all the other guys. And he's like, I'm going to prove that I'm right. And their sergeant gets shot because they steal the bullets. Well, only because there's a guy, basically, his character in there. I forgot what his name is. I think it's Stucky.
Mm-hmm.
He fired. They all have blanks because they're not supposed to bring live ammo. But Fred Ward's character did bring the ammo. Luckily, they helped him out. But Stuckley. Well, they're on. They steal these canoes, and they come across a Cajun ground because they're like, well, because they're lost, so we'll just take a note. Powers Boothe left a note there for them saying, like, and he's trying to yell them. They don't.
The other guy did, not Powers.
Was it Powers Boothe? Or was
it was the
Bolton?
football player guy.
Bolton, coach.
It was the football, coach guy. It was the teacher guy, ex-football player. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
he was like the moral center, but like you say, he was like a high school guy.
Yeah. So he left a note, and Stucky, who's an idiot, he's got the Rambo things on. He thinks he's all hot shit and stuff. Fires his machine gun, even though it's full of blanks. The people on the who came to their campground, and saw the bullets guy was standing at the door. He fired at them. They freaked out, ducked cover, and he's gonna laugh and have fun. The one problem is that there was one guy who actually had live ammo on the shore, shot and killed their sergeant, their staff sergeants. Yeah. So he's dead. And then, I think it was Powers Boothe that flipped the canoes over. They blame it on them. He's like, oh yeah, they blame it on him, but I think I don't. It's hard to tell. I thought he did it purposely because he doesn't want it to protect him from gunfire in the water.
No, it didn't look that way to me.
But maybe they panicked. But anyway, they lose. They had any compass. They lost their compass. They lost their radio. They lost the map. So that allows so then they're forced to follow this I call it, which would be like your Dwight from The Office type guy because he's the next one in rank. He's an idiot. Doesn't know what he's doing. He's freaking out.
This is Sergeant Casper.
Casper, that's a good name for him. He's going to be soon Casper. But so one by one, I love about this movie. It's like they don't know how many people are on shore. They come across this guy, another guy. He's a trapper, and he's only got one arm, and they're freaking out. While the Casper, he's one of those guys. He's got to do something. He's probably thinking it's on his ass. If they catch a killer, they come back empty-handed. So this guy, this guy's the guy shot our guy, and Fred Ward's the guy. He's one of the killer. And you can really tell by that people are still rational. Like, this guy only has one arm. How could he shoot miles off? And I love Kieth Carradine here. His role in here. He comes off the goofball, but he's also one of those guys. He's not stupid.
He's like the glue guy.
Yeah.
People respond to him, but he doesn't want to be in charge. But he knows both sides. He knows the sergeant side and all that, and he knows the people that are underneath him. Because that's what this film was all about. And I want to pause for a second to mention here. One of the strengths of this film is the characters. Because to me, I agree with you. I think Kieth Carradine and here playing PFC Spencer, he's like the glue guy. Powers Boothe character, as we'll find out, his stature grows in importance because he's just a guy that's just trying to do his duty, check the box. He's really, really cynical. He's got a wife. He just wants to go home.
Yeah.
This is the early 70s, and he mentioned how he got like a chemical engineering degree. And when you're in Texas, what that means is you're in the energy industry, and was a lucrative thing for him. But him and Kieth Carradine's character, they seem to get along fairly well. Like they're somewhat normal, and everybody else has a slight flaw to him that gets magnified. And what I wanted to ask you is okay, we've both been outdoors and all that stuff, and you're really more of a hunter than I am. But when you get to a point where, like they are, where they think that they're lost, and there's water in all these places in the swamp there, they come across these boats. It is a nice little situation to see what you're put in, and it doesn't have to be a slick and sexy one. It's a typical thing. What do you do if you're lost? Do you back up and start over? All these questions come up, and in a split second, they decide, let's go ahead and use these boats, cross them, and they'll leave one so those guys can get them. So it makes sense. Yeah. But like you said, when they get in the water and they see some guys run off, the one guy who's emotionally very immature, probably middle schoolish as far as his attitude,
he's
fires off a few blanks rounds. As soon as he did that, it's like, oh my God, how stupid can you get?
He's like the John Leguizamo guy. character. That's what he'd be like in the current movie, today, the 90s. Does that same
Kinda.
kind of, yeah, kind of that same kind of character.
He's really the weak one of the group, and he kind of knows it, so he overdoes it by doing these stupid things for
Yep.
attention. It's it's like there's certain distinct personalities, say in the classroom or on a team or in a
He's a
squad
class
of
clown.
guys doing stuff. Yeah, and
So he's a
so
coward too.
that's early on. Again, within 5 minutes of this film, I mean, it starts off with them being offloaded and meeting together and then being sent off. So by the time the opening music starts, you've got your setup, you see what they're doing. And it's a deliberate film. It's not one that, goes really fast, really slow. And there's not a lot of talking, but just enough. It's good. And at the point here where their original commander gets shot and then they're in either all SOL, I'll go, oh my God, how can you guys make it worse? And they do, because they're all panicking, because the guy that seems like he's got the moral center, the teacher, history teacher / coach, ex-football player,
Harding,
hardcore Christian guy, totally loses it later on. And one of the things you mentioned here, because you actually mentioned two of them, the shooting and also when they come across the one-armed man, the action in this film, I think, is great. It's phenomenal. It's not a gunfight. Nothing.
It reminded me kind of a Platoon in a sense. The guys, your guys are corrupt. They're not nice guys. They're panicking. They're lost. The first one, they want a scapegoat, because that's what makes them feel in control. When they're the guy in charge beating up on somebody, it gives them a sense of comfort. And then you got the rivalry between Fred Ward and Powers Boothe in this movie. Fred Ward's going up there, and the Powers Boothe comes up from behind him with a knife to his neck.
Yeah. Fred Ward, he's the local guy that knows what's going down, so he's like your street smart guy. But Powers Boothe, as soon as he comes up to him behind him, because he doesn't want to give up the ammo, and he's got that knife at the guy's throat, and he's like, stop fucking around. I just have to say this about Powers Boothe. I think Kieth Carradine's great here, but he's somebody that, when I saw this movie back on HBO in like 81, 82 when it came out, I immediately gravitated towards him, because he's just got this natural charisma, no nonsense bullshit stuff, and it's just a great screen presence. And he did a HBO series. We played Philip Marlowe a few years after this, and I enjoyed that a lot. He's just somebody that I go, man, I want to see him on screen. And in here, once he says that and all that, you can feel the tension rising. You feel this group going apart. You feel kind of like this isn't going to end well, because their guy that's now in command, who's never really done it before, and he's trying to do the right thing, he's just ineffective at it. He doesn't command respect, and he's not being an asshole. He's trying to do the best he can with the position he's being put in, and he panics. It's a very human type film, I think.
Like they take the Cajun guy hostage, he's only got one arm, and even like Casper, he's like that. He's not leading. He's trying to lead, but he has no control.
Exactly.
And that's worse, because and then he's leading him and Spencer's like, it's like, I thought you said the highway's north, like they want to go west because and he's like, well, we're gonna go north, and he's like, what do you mean go north? Well, he's like, I'm pretty sure the sun sets in the west and rises in the east, and
north was the highway, and they thought that was the way to get out. I wanted to ask you this though, before we continue. When I saw this film, and I'm excusing the gunplay and whether it's realistic or not, one of the things I thought of is, okay, they don't want to leave a man behind. And there's a part of me that goes, I respect that, and I understand it. But then the survivalist outdoorsman side of me says, well, wait a minute. You're in unknown territory. You're not really, living this as a lifestyle. You've got people hunting you. You don't know how many. You're on their ground. It's dark. Your supplies are limited. You've got no weapons or ammo. They didn't want to go back to the start and then, try to redo everything. When that's why they chose to make the boats. They steal the boats or use them, if you want to call it that, because they felt pressured. But wouldn't you think that they should not have carried the original body out of there? Because they end up obviously not doing it.
Well,
and then they take the guy hostage. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are just asking for it. And as a kid, you don't know or think about these things. No. But as an adult, you're watching and going, oh my God, you get where they're coming from. They think he did it, but they don't know.
I'm thinking to every single horror movie there is situation. Horror movies have taught me, it's like, you don't do certain things. And yes, it's adding up to this. We've seen this before. Now, originally taking the body, I can see that, because, well, as far as I know, there's only one guy shot at them, but so they finally decided, they can't keep him around, and they decided to bury him. So they give him a burial, but only after someone else dies. So then they have two bodies they bury. They finally buried the sergeant, and I forgot who the other guy was. He died right away.
Yeah.
They give him a Christian burial and everything. It's as far as I got to put out one flaw that I come out of this movie though.
What's that?
It's Louisiana. I'm not a native there, so I don't know. But I would think there'd be some form of at least a lot of water moccasins, snakes.
Well, if it's the winter time, you don't necessarily encounter them that much.
I don't know if it's the winter time. I mean, there's a little.
That it was cold, wit, and it was the winter rain coming in. They mentioned that early on.
Even crocodile alligators over there will not be out.
In Florida we have a ton of them all the time. But the reality of it is that if you don't leave your pets out or you don't feed them, they usually don't come around at all. And I know the Florida man thing gets glorified on Twitter and everywhere else. And we do have them, but it's like anything else. Once in a while, you might see one walking across the street. You just stop. It's going from one watering thing to another. And like twice a year when it's mating season, they come out to the water a lot. So you just don't walk around a water's edge where there's a lot of bushes or any of that kind of stuff.
Because my question is, I don't know if it's for the winter. I don't know where they go, but if you're in their water where they are, you disturb them.
They kind of half hibernate. They try to go to where it's a little bit warmer and they stay out of it. And they're not going to be naturally aggressive. And everybody thinks immediately, if you step in water, everything's going to come at you. No, it's not. And you could see the breath on them. This, like I say, the look of this film was great because it's all in the swamp, and it was shot when it was cold, relatively speaking, because they did shoot it in Louisiana. You could see their breath and everything, and rainy and 55 degrees, may not sound cold to people that are in Wisconsin but down here when you're out there, that just gets you to the bone. You know what I mean? And they only had 1 day's worth of rations, which
55 degrees and it's raining is cold. 60 degrees and rain is cold. And anything under 70 and it starts raining, it gets damp, and it gets cold. And especially if you're in the rain, it's even colder. Imagine the wind. You have basically like a wind chill factor to it, because you absorb the wetness, and then it's cold it's not good. I'm surprised none of them died or got hypothermia or frostbite on their feet too. Because the one thing you want to do is they're walking through the water. Now, if those aren't skin tight, so if they have boots on, if they had a fire, they should be drying their socks off.
Yeah, and it's not that kind of a film because it's really,
I know. I'm just saying realistically, if you're out in the middle, lost like that.
Well, they filmed it there, and like I say, there's a scene where the action sequences are okay. We get a little bit of a shootout. It's kind of a stupid decision they do it, but each of the guys in the group kind of has one specific thing about the personality, and some of them, like you said, are really young emotionally, and I think also intelligence-wise. And then there's some that are very smart, but not, they're more rational rather than emotional, and that's what you see here is usually the ones that are ineffective with being a fully formed human being. Let's say
the ones who are an idiot,
they die
fast. Fast.
Exactly. And there's a couple bits of cynicism here I want to talk about because we're kind of getting towards the end here a little bit. But there's a line here where Kieth Carradine is addressing the guys because they're starting to look for him as leadership because he's the easy guy that gets along with everybody. And he says, well, the reality of it is if we're not there, in 24 hours, like they're not going to be missing their mark. He goes, the reality of it is, he goes, okay, if they're not, we're supposed to be there at noon, which means they won't get there till 1 because they're running late. Then they'll check up on us at 2. And then after about 4, they might decide, oh, we're not in our barracks. So at 5, they might call around. So that means at 6, they might decide, oh, we need to look for one of the copters, but it's going to get dark. So we'll have to do it the next day. And he's not saying it to be a jerk. He's not saying it to be smart. He's just stating the reality of the situation. And I thought, wow, what a great cynical line about how the reality of any sort of governmental type high functioning organization is, whether it's good function or not. And military, some people think it was being different than a business, but I just love that line as an adult listening to it, because it's like it really adds to the drama of the situation of what's going. And again, the people that are the most rational in here are the ones that actually make it out. So even though your impulse is to maybe hunt these guys down that killed you guys and get revenge, the more you give into that animal side here, the worse your chances are of surviving. And that's the struggle that they go through. Because the next scene, you talked about the violence in here and some of the action.
Yeah.
The next scene is more brutal than I remember. It's when the people that are hunting them, the Cajuns, sicked a group of a couple dogs on. They're tearing the hell out of them up, and it's not like, oh, he bit me and they ran off. No, these guys get mauled. It's brutal. It's a great scene. When you watch it, you go, wait a minute, this is the early '80s. I'm not saying that there was acceptable violence when it comes to animals. I'm a big time animal lover.
I'm
but
surprised they didn't shoot them.
The most bang for their buck here with these dogs attacking them.
These guys are idiots. They're not thinking straight. The dogs are attacking them. Should have shot them. I know they limited bullets, but a blank still at close range can hurt a dog.
Yeah, yeah. So they've got the Cajun guy captured. He eventually escapes.
Only because well, he gets escapes because they allowed him to, because Powers Boothe and Fred Ward get into a knife fight.
Yeah. Because
Fred Ward's basically interrogating him, shoving his head in the water. Yeah. And at this point, you're on Power Boothe's side, like, wow, dude, you're losing it. Leave him alone. He tells him, like, lift his head up, get his head out of the water. He's like, fine, here you go. Then he puts it back in. They get in a fight. And of course, because of the knife fight and all this, the Cajun guys there, all of a sudden he speaks English. He says, kill him. As Fred Ward's backed up against a tree.
Yep.
And in the end, well, Powers Boothe does. He kills him. And now, as we see later on, we'll find more about this guy. Your opinion on what Powers Boothe did is you kind of question it afterward later on.
Yeah.
So Fred Ward dies. He gets a knife to the heart. And I got to say, we're using the red color paint again, like we use in Dirty Harry.
Yeah, bright red.
Bright red.
It's what real blood looks like. It's not oxidized yet because it hasn't had time with oxygen interacting with it.
Usually comes out dark red.
No, it doesn't.
Whenever I cut myself, it's red. It's darker. It's not bright. It's like paintball red. So,
I don't want to hear about you cutting yourself, sir.
Well, I'm just saying, when you accidentally cut yourself, I've done that already. Outside cutting up branches up, and did not look bright red like that. Like just like trigger paste.
Well, before we talk about the final act, which I actually enjoyed, one thing I definitely want to address is, like I say, the film looks great. It's shot great. I love the action in it. But the one thing that is, a younger Ry Cruder did the soundtrack for it. So you hear a lot of slide guitar with a little bit of a blues kind of thing going on. And whenever I think of Louisiana, people can talk about New Orleans, the Superdome, whatever, hurricanes, poor people, whatever. I'm not making fun of the state or whatever. I live in Florida. People make fun of it all the time. This movie always comes to mind because it really captures something that's somewhat unique to that area, and with the people and what we're going to talk about in the third act. But the music, it's just great. It's not scary. But like I say, I look at this movie as a thriller, and it's an examination of the human condition. And I know that sounds like real uppity, but that's one of the things I like about Walter Hill, the way he does some of the things in this film. But I thought the music's outstanding. It's not a synth score or anything else like that. It's authentic.
The thing about this, though, you could have had this in any kind of setting. You could have had this during the Revolutionary War, because there were trappers and the Cajuns, back in those farms. So you didn't necessarily have to be in the 70s. It could have been in any decade, actually. Thinking about this, people going through the swamp, coming across, the fur trappers, which poaching was illegal in Louisiana. It's I don't know if it still is now, but I know in Wisconsin, you cannot. You're certain you have to. There's laws, and these guys, with Cajun people, they don't follow their own. They have their own community. They don't follow the law,
and they may not even know what those laws are.
Yeah.
They're living that far out.
That far in the middle of nowhere.
The guy says in the third act, when they're looking for a phone, he goes, "Oh, we have no phone. We barely have lights," and it's true.
Yeah, we have power lines. That's it. No phone. But yeah, getting just before we get to the third act, I want to talk about. There's the only one black guy in here. Cribs. Cribs,
minor league drug dealer.
Minor league, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And that's man, he almost wanted to. John, he's like, John, I love Powers, but basically, Powers Boothe says like, the only reason I'm not killing you right now because I'm not believing your bullshit. Telling me that you're selling drugs to high school kids. It's like, he really wants to deal, man. So
yeah, it's a cynical exchange, but it's reality.
But Crib there's been warning signs throughout this whole movie as they're walking through. They've come across. First one was rabbits, and it 8 rabbits hanging up. Then they came across the jaw traps.
Well, the 8 rabbits at the time. That was like they're like, well, okay, we got signs of life here, and then the one guy says, well, there's 8 rabbits, and the other guy's like, so, and he's like, well, there's 8 of us. And it sounds cheesy, like you say, like old movies since then do stuff like that.
Yes.
But for some reason, it just works. Maybe it's the accumulation of the atmosphere and what they've gone through, but it's like, oh, Jesus, here it comes.
Yeah. They don't know how many people are in the swamp. They're on uncharted territory. They're lost. So they already stole the guy's property and blew up the guy's shed. The Cajun guy is saying, and then it comes to like later on they come across these jaw traps and like quick stuff. And I love how Fred Ward's like it's like well, I'm not gonna repeat what he said because that was like that was pretty vulgar. But
it was.
But one of them said there's only 7. And they're like, what? There's 8 of us. That means nothing like it all. And so they snap the traps, all of them. Fred Ward does with a stick, and they walk around. And they go through, and Casper puts basically Crib, puts him in the front. He's like, well, ethically, he's like, it's like quiet, and he's doing the classic things you always do. You never do. You never turn around. You always look where you're walking. You've already seen traps. He keeps walking around, turn around, and they're walking backwards, talking to the guys, turn his head, until, he gets hit by a bamboo trap spike that pops up the ground and just impales him. So then this is getting serious now. Like, at that point, it's like, oh my gosh. It's like at first these guys could have been messing with them, but now they're
playing with them. They're toying with them.
Yeah, now they're really,
And you don't see them.
You saw him a little bit towards the third act.
The split second of them running behind
there's 3
stuff.
of
It was so scary. Yeah.
Casper sees like 3 of them. He runs up with his bayonet, and they all 3 of them they line him up and they shoot him as he runs through. There's another guy in there who's freaking out too, who fired shots because he heard noises. Well, you hear animal noises, and I'm thinking right now these are Cajun guys. They probably know animal calls and stuff.
Oh yeah. That's
how they're talking to each other. So he starts firing the gun, and they're like, "What are you doing? You just gave away your position and all stuff." And this leads to all of them to Casper. The whole situation with Casper, it is just full on. Like the guy says, like after he sees Casper get shot, his body laying in the water. He's like, "I'm not supposed to be here. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not supposed to be here." And then he gets shot in the heart, and he's dead. At this point, Stuckley sees a helicopter flying over them.
Yeah,
he runs ahead of them. They're like, "Where's Stuckley?" I don't know who it is. We keep following, and he fell into quicksand.
Have you ever been stuck in mud?
Mud is.
It's not. I mean, it's
hard,
nasty.
It's hard to get. Oh yeah, quicksand.
There's very few movies that have quicksand in it, but this is one of them, and it's disgusting watching a guy go underneath. I mean, I give him all the credit in the world. You do something like this and just film it the way they do it, with hardly any music playing and just watching it. Boom, that's it. No body, nothing.
So they're out. They basically split up in groups, and they use the blanks. He said, fire one every 5 minutes. If you know where you are, so we know we figure out where you are. And they're calling him up, and he's like, and I love how I think it's French. He's like, we pretty much just told them where we are.
Yep.
And then John and Harding's like, well, they probably already know this whole entire time, or maybe I have it backwards. I think. Well, anyway, those two had that conversation. So they get ambushed again. Actually, no, it wasn't. So we're down to 3 people. It's Spacey, Coach, who's by this point they're dragging him behind with a rope at him because he's snapped. He's gone crazy. Mm-hmm. He's just kind of there. He's just kind of walking like an ox, leading a goat to slaughter. Lamb to slaughter. They set up camp. Spencer and Harding. And they talk, and I remember Coach says something, I can't remember what he said, the next morning, they can't find Coach. They look around, and then Harding sees him basically hanging from a train bridge. Actually, no.
They fell asleep and had a small camp without a fire.
Yeah, they
and
saw
they
a
were
train.
literally about 20 feet from a road, maybe that. And it's really off a slope. It might have only been 10 to 15. And you're right, he's there, and he's been hung.
There's a train going by. That's what wakes him up. He hears the rumbling. They quick run around. They run around. They keep following the train, and then you see the bridge there, and they see him hung there. And guess who they see? The trapper from before, the one that was accused.
Man.
The one-armed trap, and he speaks English to them. He's like, it's like, he's like, hey, he's like, and Harding, he's like, did you kill him or did he do it himself? And like, and he fires a warning shot, tells him, keep going. Like, you're nice to me, I'll be nice to you. Keep going. My friends aren't so nice.
Yeah, don't F with us.
Yeah, that's why I was like, and because he said, why do you do this? Like, oh, he says, don't F with us. You F with us, you pay the price. So that they make it to this guy, pulls over the card, and they're not sure if they can trust him out. He speaks Cajun first, but then he speaks English. They get in the back, they ride behind with this guy in the truck and his wife, and there's a pig. They go to town, and this is where they leave their guns there.
Well, hold on. Let's pause right there. Yeah, they're going down, and a truck pulls up, and they're speaking that particular type of French that they do in Louisiana, and it's a couple. And they're hillbillies, whatever you want to call them, backwards folk, Cajun, I'm just going to call them because I don't sound like disrespectful. And they offer them a ride into town. And it gets really interesting here because what are the animals that they have in their pickup truck that they're bringing?
Pigs.
How many?
I think only one.
Two.
Oh, wait, there is two. That's right, you're right.
And there's only two of them left.
Yeah.
So when they get to the town, this is kind of like where the movie, to me, reaches a high point because
now they're not
I'm not going to say the script is flipped because a town is loosely 5 or 6 small buildings, maybe a couple homes, maybe a little bit more than that, maybe 50 people, and they're playing allegedly authentic Cajun music from people that have actually had that in their family there, and all this goes on mostly the entire time. And it's neat because Hardin, the Powers Boothe guy, you can see his paranoia growing, and he's smart that way. He's like, we're not out of here. And then the glue guy Carradine, he's like, well, hey, these are the good ones. They're not the bad ones that we encountered or like that. Because the guy's like, well, we'll take you to town after we eat and all that here too, the big town or whatever. And they can't get a phone or whatever. But I don't think they had any more ammo. But you're right, they did put it down. They go around, they go to get something to eat. The one girl goes to dance with him, and the whole time this is going on in the town, you see the pigs getting slaughtered, and they get shot, they get bled. And I'm gonna be honest. I think as a kid I saw pigs slaughtered once, but only parts of it. I don't know how it's actually done. I was going to ask you if you thought that was authentic.
I've never.
I thought you hang them up and slit their throat and bleed them out that way. Here they kind of
shot them
did
first.
Out of order.
Exactly,
which is realistic.
And then what's weird is like they really enforce it into because they're showing Harding being watching the two guys that
being fattened up like pigs.
Yep. Well, yeah. He sees the two guys come in from the guys who are hunting them, get off the boat. And he's watching and he grabs the butcher knife, and he goes to the window and watch them. And then while this is going on, it gets cut. It's cutting to the pigs being slaughtered.
Yep.
And back to those two soldiers, Harding, and they're inside. He's watching through the window, and he sees he goes out. He grabs the butcher knife, walks out, and he's gonna leave. But then the guy comes out from behind the woods in the tree, and he's got a gun. They chase him into this little barn area, and this is like a little maze as it was. Because remember, everything's all cluttered, cramped together, and it's just the little he gets shot in the shoulder. He sees Spencer comes in and he sees the guys. And this is where Southern Comfort takes this name. As Spencer goes basically John's gonna get shot, or I think his name's John Harding. I'm not sure, but Harding's gonna get shot by the guy. Spencer comes in with a bayonet to charge the guy, and the guy turns around. He's gonna shoot Spencer. Harding takes the knife he has, butcher knife, and shoves it in the guy's right in his groin, And that guy
It's brutal.
screamed. Oh my
Oh my
god.
god. It's not a for
Oh,
laughs or a waka
oh,
waka.
no.
It's brutal survival,
Yes.
trying to put somebody down as quick as possible. And
I'm like, Southern Comfort? That's not comfort. This whole movie, calling it Southern Comfort, we think of, good old time, drinking the whiskey, and having some. No, it's basically like, the opposite. As I said, this would be like your slasher / thriller movie, like your Halloween movie, but without Michael Myers, because the way it's set up, because you
right.
don't know how many there are, but these people are hunting you. They're going to kill you. You have a few rounds. If you even have any, you mostly have blanks. You're lost. You're on their territory. You don't know who you can trust, especially at the very end of this. They're in the town. They don't know. At this point, I expect the whole town to be in on it. Like,
Do you think they were?
I don't think they were. I think because those two guys came in, maybe they were out there doing whatever they're doing, and it was just kept quiet. Because the one girl actually kind of liked Carradine's character. She's like, "Do you want to dance?" And like, oh, and she's kind of disappointed.
Yeah, because it's a new guy from out of town who's charming and all
yeah.
that.
No.
What's interesting, because like I say, while the music's playing, two guys are singing some song, and it goes back and forth, and
it's good
there's
music.
some hose stomping going on. It's a do 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 do, and they've got violin playing and all that. So there's no talking in this final scene. I mean, and it goes on for a long time, and you're watching it goes up. And the guys that were hunting them, there was like, I think 2 of them left. They kind of show up, and they see him like through looking out a window from one of the I don't know, from the opera room, let's call it.
Well, that's hard.
So they're like, we got to get out of here, and then they can't make it because another guy's watching them. They get cornered. It's really tense. It's done well. It's not over the top by any means. And again, it shows what happens when you go and it's like a culture clash. You go into a situation that you don't honor the land, you don't honor the culture that you're going and being a part of, even if it's a temporary amount of time, and you don't respect certain things, you get chewed up. And some people look at this as like a Vietnam type film. I don't. Everything I've read about it and heard Walter Hill in interviews, he says it wasn't meant to be that way. It was just a backwards kind of film.
Wasn't it after Vietnam?
It was, but it was set in 1973. That came out in 1981. But some people look at it and say this is a movie about Vietnam, meaning, despite technology and resources the United States have, we're not successful because we're on their turf. And we always talk about guerrilla tactics when you look at Vietnam. And I don't want to go down that path too hard, because I really don't feel it's a film that's making a message about it. No PTSD. It's not like Rambo.
This ending, and this would have been a horror movie, like because here at the very ending, after they took out these guys, the guys originally had each other. Those two guys, Spencer and Harding, basically they carried out each other, and they go back into the swamps. Then they see the helicopter, same helicopter before. They follow it, and this is where I don't know what they decided, but it goes. They decided to do slow motion for the film as they're moving. You see this Jeeps pulling up, and my first gut is like, because I've watched all these horror movies. Wow, just give me the Cajuns driving the army, They've done this before many times and got away with it. No, it turned out to be the military that they're rescued, and that's it. But I was thinking, oh, that would have been such a I don't know. I kind of would have liked the ending more, because it doesn't seem believable. The ending would have been a little more like, okay, they get there, and then it's like, oh my gosh, they didn't make it. Like, it's just like they thought they're making it. They survive all this. They find out, it's not the military.
Well, and that's the thing too, is I don't even think the movie's slamming the military. I mean, you can definitely take that point of view. I just look at it as a human film, and it's set where it's at, and I like the man versus nature aspect of it too. A stranger in a strange land, if you will, and it's just done so well as a film. It's a shame, because like me, E and a few others saw it, loved it, but it wasn't a film that a lot of people talked about when it came on. And so when we go watch it at HBO or whatever in the early 80s, it was like, wow, did you see this one? Yeah. And we talk about it, and it was just tense. And rewatching it now as an adult, I'm like, wow, this to me still holds up. It's these guys, even though they're National Guard, another cynical part to it too is on a bigger note, you take the personalities of it, you look at the National Guard, those are supposed to be people that aren't, professional. You got people now, and you hear it every day. Thank you for your service, and you could have been like a file clerk in Afghanistan
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
military base and never fired a gun in your life except for training,
yeah.
right?
So
And that's not a knock, but
no,
I think back then, when you have National Guard, it was still considered to be more held in esteem than even what it may be now. But it's just these
well,
people are not professionals.
my brother's he's in the Air Guard for the Air Force, and there's none of this nonsense. None of that would not go around. So this is a little bit of Hollywood, but then again, you don't know. This could have been back. This is the '70s. Maybe they're more relaxed back then. These are guys. They got lost, so there was no point of having a chain command. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
They're in a lawless area, so who's going to survive? Is it the people that follow the law or not?
But yeah, so like I said, the end of this movie, and just the whole plot of this, as Marania comments, plot seems timeless, which is a sign of a well-written movie. It is a well-written movie. This could have been Cowboys versus Indians very well. It didn't have to be in the '70s. It didn't have to be that time. It's just
true.
Yeah, and it's man versus nature, but it's also man versus man. With nature involved too. You're behind enemy lines. You are automatically, your odds of surviving are not that high. Yeah, you're not gonna live unless you it's just like a horror movie. The person who's the bad people, the people who are all the criminal stuff, they die. In this movie, it's almost the same thing. The people who are good and honorable survive.
Yeah, I for my final thoughts, I gotta say it's definitely a film that you probably watch it once and maybe never watch it again. But it's a very watchable film, and it's not like we're going, yeah, we're rooting for all these good guys, because the one thing about it that I mentioned before, even though I like a lot of the characters in here, or the actors, I should say, is not one character necessarily stands out early on where you go, okay, that we're going to see this movie through this character's eyes. They do give everybody enough screen time. So it's basically, not a one-man show. It really is a group of people who have distinct personalities, and we don't know which one is supposed to be the A-list guy that's never going to die or get a scratch or any of that stuff at all. And I think that's just a great thing to recognize, because we don't hardly ever see that in films, do we? So you have a group of guys here that are supposed to, they're men, but they're not functional as far as together working as a group. You can say they've got bad training workers or National Guard, but again, it's a nice simple squeeze play, and it's done well, and it's shot on location. It's got great music. It's a great film. It's very enjoyable. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I know Marania and here's interested in hearing about it. Marania, if you have not seen it, I think you would enjoy it. What final thoughts do you have?
Final thoughts is, like I said, this is a movie I saw, but I'm glad I watched, because I didn't know anything about it, but from the front, from the cover, just looking at the poster, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want this. And then I saw the trailer, and I was like, wow, this actually seems kind of cool. I didn't watch all the trailer. I only watched the first minutes, because I don't want to spoil it, because a lot of trailers do give away all the plot. So I'm glad that I watched it. Glad you recommended it. It was a last minute. It was a last minute pull.
Well, it's been on the short list for a while, like with some other films too. We had some people comment recently on a few films too, because our top 10 lists are a combination of ones we think are the best, ones we've seen, and also ones we enjoy. So it's always nice when people go back and listen to a 2 or 3 year old video and give us a suggestion about something, or at least make a comment about it. Really do appreciate that.
Well, with that being said, I guess look forward to this Sunday. I guess we're doing, well, I believe, what's next Nerdy Hair movie?
It's the third one, sir.
The third one. I'm trying to remember those. Is it Sudden Impact? Or am I thinking
Sudden Impact? We just did Magnum Force. I don't know what the name of the third one is. It's not Deadpool. It's not Sudden Impact. So it's The Enforcer.
Enforcer, yes, the Enforcer. That's
I think this is the one that has the Cagney and Lacey woman in it, and this one I still think is pretty entertaining too. I remember her with as being his partner. So yeah, Dirty Harry Part 3, Sunday night, 7 p.m. EST. Join us for that.
Join us for our Dirty Sunday.
Yeah, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening, and I'm thankful I've watched it, because it is all about being thankful, because I respect the movies that I watch, unless they suck. I respect the fact that I've put my time and effort into watching them.
Right.
Yeah, don't be afraid to turn the channel off if it sucks. I mean, that's really the bottom line. And some movies people recommend, I go, oh God, I really don't want to talk about it. But you try to find stuff that you can. This is a movie that would not be made today.
No. Especially the way they treated the people that were, you know, I don't think he used the N-word in this, you know. Well, actually, no. Yes, Crib, he did use the N-word himself, but no other white guy used the N-word. So that was shocking. I was like, oh, really?
Well, when you see more 70s and 80s movies, you'll find that that's a lot more commonplace, at least back then, up to a point.
Yeah. All right. Is number 3 the where they emphasize not being Harry's partner because they die? I couldn't
it's
tell
been
you.
a while. I remember that she comes across as, I don't know if she has the degree in sociology and all that, but she ends up being a very good partner. And I never really watched Carradine Lacey all that much, because as a kid I had that cognitive dissonance of women are detectives. You know, and I knew about Charlie's Angels, but even then I knew it was a glamour show. But I think she does a really good job in there, and a lot of people loved Carradine Lacey back in the day. So it'll be interesting to see how that one is compared to the other two, and doing something like that in order. I think we get an opportunity to kind of see how the character changes a little bit if he does, which I don't think he has, but also how well the movies hold up, especially the music and the writing and the directing and all that, especially if other people are involved, which I believe starts with the third one there too. So we'll see. All right. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for listening. As always, stay extreme.
Later.